Good morning. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Can you see my screen? Please respond either with a hand in the air or you can reply in the chat box. All right. We're waiting a few more minutes for people to come online. For those who are already on, please introduce yourselves by typing the name of the school you're representing in the chat box so we can all just be familiar with who's on. All right, if you have any comments, questions, please make sure to enter into the chat box. All right. While we're still waiting for a few more people to come online, I want to take a moment to introduce staff that is also participating on the webinar. My name is Tasheen Stallings. I'm the program specialist here at OSSE with the Homeless Education Program. We have Nicole Lee Wanda, who is the Homeless Education State Coordinator. We also have our director, Ms. Cheryl Hamilton, who's joining us. And we also have a special guest from the Deputy Mayor of Education, Nematolaya Aziz, who will be participating in a question and answer session towards the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Tashi, for the introductions. This is Nicole Lee Mwanda. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well, and so glad you all were able to join us today.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 10:35 a.m. Again, I would like to thank you for joining us today for this end of the year procedures for McKinney-Vento webinar presentation. Know that you guys have been very busy since it's been the conclusion of the park testing season. A lot of you are gearing up for the transition into summer school or just the dismissal of the school year. So I just want to thank you for allowing this time to be a part of this. Again, any questions or comments, please enter into the chat box, and then we'll make sure to answer accordingly in between breaks of the presentation. So our objectives today, we're going to review procedures in terms of closeout, how to store files, make sure that we provide you with some resources and programs, any upcoming activities and events that are related to McKinney-Vento programming. And then later on, we will also discuss transportation issues, which will be part of the Q&A session with the with the Deputy Mayor for Education. First slide, we're going to discuss the homeless education program. For many of you guys, this may be a review. I know we do have some new liaisons who are filling in the roles for the remainder of the school year. So I just want to make sure that we just cover some of the basic information of what the homeless education program represents here at OSSE. As you all know, we provide training to you. We collect data information based on what is input into your school's school information system, otherwise known as your SIS. We want to make sure that any student who is identified as experiencing homelessness is accounted for by your school or LEA, and to make sure that proper supports and educational opportunities are afforded to them just as any permanently housed student. We also want to make sure that parents are receiving the proper educational rights and supports, not only from the school, but any other community partners that may be connected to your school. We also want to address any challenges that any families or children and youth experiencing homelessness may face in terms of enrolling, academic success, receiving school supplies, school uniform assistance, and just making sure they have an overall safe environment within your school system. We're going to discuss some of the connections of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act as it relates to housing status. As you know, we have 4 categories that are related to housing status, which is sheltered, hotel, motel, unsheltered, and doubled up. Many families, as you know, probably don't relate to some of these situations as experiencing homelessness. At the same time, there are some families who will not be self-identifying as experiencing homelessness due to a sense of pride or stigmatism or any other negative attributes that may come with the association. We want to make sure that any student that is identified in your school is properly identified within your school information system, which then is also viewed within the different database systems that we use in terms of collecting data that we report out to Department of Education and other local agencies. So we want to make sure that everybody understands the differences between the different housing status categories, and just making sure that at any point during the school year, if anything should change, that it is also reflected within your school database system. As you may know, that majority of families you may encounter may be in a doubled up situation. So if they are, please make sure that they are afforded whatever availability of support that you can provide to them. Any unsheltered individuals, you want to make sure that they are receiving supports just as anybody else will receive. And then any questions or concerns they may have that may reflect educational supports supplied to them either through your school literature or through some other educational outreach. We're also going to review some tools for catching homeless student data. For that, we have what you guys would use at the enrollment level. You will have a form that would help identify any family who may be experiencing homelessness, in which they would be identified either in a hotel, motel if they're doubled up, living in some other shelter or some other means which is not permanently housed status. We also use different database tools, the QuickBase application, which many of you are familiar with, in terms of making sure that the student data information is currently housed there. We also want to make sure that as we get to the end of the school year, that you are checking your database systems to ensure that uh, the proper fields are all completed, meaning that we want to make sure that the date identified as homeless, nighttime residency status, and if the student is an unaccompanied youth, we want to make sure that that information is entered into your system and is reflective in QuickBase on our end. We have been doing some outreach to you guys, myself, Nicole, and our third team member, Danielle Rollins, have been reaching out to you guys either by phone or email just to verify that this information has been complete. So please, at the conclusion of this webinar, we want to make sure that you also just double check your database systems just to ensure that the information is showing on our end so that we can mark you guys in compliance before you dismiss for the end of the school year. We also use SLED and comprehensive homeless student data application, also known as ClickSense, which also houses student data information. This time I'm just going to take a short break and just see if there's any questions. Is there anyone who's still having trouble hearing me? Just want to just check and make sure. All right, just want to make sure everybody hears me. And everybody can see the screen, right? All right, just checking responses, folks. Just bear with me. Just checking responses. Okay. So, yes, Andrea. Andrea asked, can someone walk us through the closeout to make sure we are in compliance? Yes, we're going to go through that as well, Andrea. All right, this is just a diagram, just kind of shows a flow chart of how information is passed from your school, your system, through our different system tools. So as you can see, it all starts with your school information system. It comes to us through QuickBase. We also do receive information from the community partnership, which is known as TCP, which works in conjunction with Virginia Williams Family Resource Center in terms of placing families into some type of housing residence. or shelter residents. The TCP data that we get will show up on the Comprehensive Student Data Application known as ClickSense, which will also determine whether or not a school has also been alerted to a family or a student that is experiencing homelessness. For those families who do not come forward to the school and announce themselves as experiencing homelessness, they may have been identified through the TCP data, which again, which if you're able to see that information, then you can approach those families and you can discreetly and very subtly just introduce yourself, not necessarily as a school liaison at that particular moment, but just let them know that if they should be in need of any particular supports, whether it be educational or any other means, referring to McKinney-Vento support services, that they can come and speak with you in a confidential manner, in a confidential environment within the school, and be able to share whatever supports they need. And then you can also just confide to them as being the school liaison for McKinney-Vento that any conversations that you have with them is in a confidential manner, and that you are there to support them through any particular needs. And also in terms of providing supports, we want to make sure that if there are some students who are in need of transportation assistance that are living outside of the DC boundary, that the school is responsible for providing additional assistance for either the child or that particular parent to make sure that there is the transportation fees are covered for either getting to school or returning home from school. So when we captured this homeless student data, as I mentioned earlier, we talked about having the nighttime residency status, date identified as homeless, and also the unaccompanied youth columns. We want to make sure that those columns are all completed. We report those out to federal agencies, more importantly, Department of Ed, to give a highlight of what the school year has looked like in terms of identifying students who are experiencing homelessness. Again, we have been reaching out to you guys on an individual basis just to make sure that that information has been completed. Hopefully, you guys are working with your data managers or school registrar to make sure the information is updated and as accurate as possible. We really would like to try to get this information all completed before the dismissal of the school year. And if for some reason there are some challenges, please let us know so that we can help assist you in the best way we can. So the QuickBase data tool is what is commonly used among the liaisons for making sure that the student data is properly stored and reflective of any identified students experiencing homelessness. As it is identified in your school system, it will transfer over into QuickBase, and the information here will show up accordingly. So please be aware that if it's showing on your side, if we don't see it, we will let you know. But again, we just want to make sure that available information is updated as accurate as possible. You may have students who may be in a shelter at one point during the year, and then they are in a doubled up situation. So we just want to make sure that that information is properly reflected of that student. And this is done within the student profiles that you can do from your school information system. Again, here are the diagrams. We're just going to go through to show the different ways that you can edit the information in terms of making sure that the student profile is as updated as possible. As you can see, the arrow is pointing to the red box, where it's an icon of a pencil, which is the editing tool. As you go into the student's profile, there are different fields which are editable fields. Again, this is information where if it started out as one piece of information, but as the course of the school year has gone on and the student has been in transition or the family has been in transition, these are the fields that can be updated as possible. Again, we want to make sure that if there's any questions or any assistance that's needed, you can feel free to reach out to us for assistance. But we also want to make sure that you are aware of what is within your purview to edit any information or update any information as best as possible. Here we're looking at address information. Sometimes you may get something that is not readily maybe justifiable in terms of an address, but you can use these links here to look up the address and see if it is a viable address. Keep in mind, if they are in a shelter, it may not come up as a residence for privacy identification reasons, especially if there's a parent who is in a domestic violence situation. But this also just helps provide content to the student or family. So we want to make sure that this is updated as best as possible. Another field, which is under special circumstances, you want to just check all the different items that apply to a particular student, and then also do a follow-up to make sure that the services are being rendered as frequent as possible. If there are students who are attending your school and they do have siblings who are also attending your school, or if you are LEA with multiple campuses, this is a good way of just tracking the family, especially if you are unaware of students and because of maybe different last names or some other circumstances in which some may be living with one parent versus a different parent. But this is a good way to kind of help track any family supports and information that is needed. I'm going to take a pause here to see any questions or comments that are being asked. Oh, my sound went out. So let me just back up. Just going back to the slide where we had the information for residency address to be entered. Again, we have a link here that provides justification of an address. It'll pull up a map and it'll give you an approximate intersection, street location, ward identification, zip code of the address provided. Please keep in mind that some addresses may not come up as a residence if a family is in a domestic violence situation, but you can just use it as a point of reference for contact information.
So,
all right.
Sorry, Tasheen, there was a question. So just so that you all are aware, I'm providing support to Tasheen, monitoring the questions that you have, and I'm answering you all one by one. So I hope that you all can see my answers, but I want to go ahead and read some of them if you're not able to see what your peers are asking as far as different questions people have during the presentation. So one of the questions that was asked by Renisha was that if TCP identifies a student as homeless and they do not voluntarily come forward, do we put them in our SIS as homeless? And so what I replied to her, I was basically stating that if you have a student that you see in the ClickSense application as identified by TCP as experiencing homelessness, then you should definitely reach out to the parent or the student if they're an unaccompanied student, you should reach out to them to let them know that you are the contact person to provide supports and services for any family that's displaced. Be very careful with the language that you're using, because not everyone considers themselves to be homeless, especially if they are doubled up or if they have some type of shelter, and they may feel like they, want to be careful with how they disclose that and who they disclose it to. So you're basically informing them that there are services and supports that are available through your school for any family that's in transition or that's been displaced, and that you are the contact person, and you just wanted to let them know. And then that opens the door and allows them the opportunity to share with you what their housing status is. If they still choose not to disclose that they're experiencing homelessness, then you just leave it alone. OSSE will capture that data through CLIC, and will still report it to the Department of Ed, and will still acknowledge that that family was experiencing homelessness at your school. But do not identify them in your SIS if they have not disclosed to you that they're experiencing homelessness. So I see that also she had a follow-up question, because her LEA is an adult LEA, their student population. Does this apply to them as well? So basically, one of the best practices that in the district that we choose to do is that, because we have students that are experiencing homelessness that are of an array of ages, we want to capture all homeless students, even if they are adults. Typically, if they are adult learners, they are not eligible for MKV support. So your LEA is not required to or mandated to provide certain supports to them. But in general, we still want to capture that they're experiencing homelessness so that we can track our adult learners. And that's how we're able to advocate for things such as, I know that there's a big push right now to try to get DC-1 cards and transportation assistance for adult learners that are students, so that they too can ride for free. So that's why we want to be sure that we're still capturing who our adult learners are, even if you're not mandated to provide certain supports to them as they would be provided for younger students. Okay, so I hope everyone can see the questions. Again, I'm trying to answer them as Tashin is going along, but when he takes breaks, then I'll read them out loud in case you're not able to see it. But in order for you to see the questions from your peers, then what you do is there's a little square box with an arrow. If you click on that where the question box is, it will undock your box and you can make it bigger, and then you can see all the questions that people are asking as I'm responding to them. Thank you. Oh, wait, sorry, we have one more question, Tashin. It says, if a student is unaccompanied, doubled up without a parent, can the parent claim the child on their taxes? From Rashida. If the student is unaccompanied and doubled up, so they're not in the care of a parent or guardian, the parent should not be claiming them on the taxes, ideally, but you can't control them claiming them. So should they be claiming them? No, because they're not taking care of them. But again, you're not able to control that. When it comes to students applying for federal funds for them to go to college, if the child is unaccompanied, they can receive independent status, and we can do an unaccompanied homeless student referral form for them. But if the parent is still claiming them on their taxes and the student is stating that they're independent, then it could come back to haunt them both, where they might be required to pay that money back. So it's best that the parent is not claiming them on their taxes, especially if they're applying for financial aid for college. The next question was, is there a standard form to report MKV status to colleges for aid purposes? Yes, there is. There's an unaccompanied referral form that typically has been completed by my team. When you all have students that are experiencing homelessness and need the referral form, we are now about to roll out in the next week or two the form, so that we revised it so that the LEA and school-based homeless liaisons can now complete it on behalf of your students. So wait for an email from me. If you have a student that's applying this week for financial aid, please email me or Tasheen, and we can fill out the form in the interim until we can roll that out and send you the guide and the information. So Rashida, just follow up with me and I can give you some more information on that. So I'm going to answer 2 more questions, and then Tashina wants you to go ahead and continue, and we'll wait till another break. The other question is from Christy. It says there is a student who exited our school before the October audit, but is still identified on our roster and click in and QuickBase. Should I submit a ticket to have the student removed? No. For all of you, if your students were identified as homeless and experienced homelessness for 1 day this school year, and it doesn't matter what time of year it was, they should absolutely still remain on your roster, even if they move to another school or become permanently housed. We still have to count them as experiencing homelessness for this school year. Should they enroll in another school and are experiencing homelessness still at that school, the system will remove them before we count them for a second time. So just know that we still need to track how many students receive supports from your school during the school year, even if they've left your school or even if they have become permanently housed. The last question that I'm answering right now is from Megan. If our pre-K student's parent is an unaccompanied minor, should we mark our student as unaccompanied? No. The parent is unaccompanied, so hopefully the parent is in school somewhere or is receiving services somewhere else, but your focus and the person that you're counting, Megan, is your student. So since the parent is not a student at your school, then you don't count the parent. If you are an LEA that has a variety of students and the parent attends your school, then you would count both the student and the parent separately if they're both students at your school. Otherwise, no, the student is in the care of the parent and the student is experiencing homelessness, and you count whatever their housing status is. If they're doubled up or in a shelter, that's what you would count. But no, the pre-K child is in the care of a parent, and so the pre-K child is not unaccompanied. If that's not clear enough, email me and I will give you more clarity. All right, thank you, Tasheen.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. All right. Just to go back to the QuickBase data tool, again, any information that you guys are entering into the system, any updates that you may be making, always make sure to hit this green save button, which is highlighted here in this red box. And then as you go down, the next figure will show that the way to get to back to the main screen, or if you want to go back to a previous student or the next student on your list. Okay, so again, always anything that you're completing, there's going to be prompts that ask you to save, don't save, or cancel. And in the event that you might want to change some information, or you see that something was misspelled, or there was an incorrect digit that was added. So you always want to just double check the information that you're putting in to make sure it's accurate as possible. And again, the save button is there to make sure that the information is there correctly. All right, excuse me. So once the information that you've just entered, updated, has been saved, when it brings you back to the main roster page, you will have a yellow icon that will be highlighted towards the left where the arrow is pointing. That yellow color will indicate that there has been some changes or updates made to that student profile. If you should check your roster and you see a green color indicator, then that means there has been a new addition to your student roster. So again, you always want to make sure that you're checking this a couple of days a week, or if not, at least once a week, to make sure your students are visible, the count is accurate, and the information is reflective of your student information system. All right, really important date we got here, Sunday, July 8th. For those of you who will be on vacation by then, thank you for your year of service with the school. But we really would like for you to make sure that all your student data information that we are requesting is entered into your student information system and is showing in QuickBase on our end, so that we will have the most accurate, up-to-date information for reporting that we need. Again, Sunday, July 8th is the deadline. After that, the system will not be available, and therefore no updates or no information can be added or altered in the system. Okay, so before I go on to homeless education closeout procedures, just want to take a moment just to see any questions that we can answer at this particular moment.
Doesn't look like there are any questions right now, Trasheen.
Okay, just wanted to check and make sure. All right.
Wait, we do have a question.
Oh,
Question is, can you go back one screen so I can take a picture to remember in my phone?
which screen are we referring to? The date?
I think that's the one.
Okay.
And just keep in mind, everyone, we will be emailing you this deck after the conclusion of this presentation. We'll be emailing you all supporting materials and this deck. There is one more question. Says, hi, thanks for the great information. This is from Brittany. Hi, thanks for the great information. I have a follow-up question on documenting students who have been identified as experiencing homelessness and CLIC, but left the school before services have been offered by LEA staff. Would these students need to be documented in QuickBase? Our school is an adult education program, and students enroll and leave throughout the year. Yes, Brittany, you should document them in QuickBase. At minimum, we need to know their nighttime student residency status as regarding where they're sleeping at night. So are they sheltered? Are they unsheltered and sleeping in their car? Are they doubled up? That's what we need to know at minimum. The other services, if you haven't provided any other services to them, that's perfectly fine. We just need to know their basic demographic information, and that's already being fed over from your student database system. But we need to know, are they an unaccompanied youth? If they're an adult learner, they wouldn't be, but we need to know where they're sleeping at night, okay? If you have their address, great. If you don't, then at minimum, we need to know their nighttime residency status, housing status. Thank you, Brittany.
All right, closeout procedures. So as you know that most schools who are not year-round schools, or if you're not hosting a summer school site, most schools will be unavailable for any type of classes or educational supports during the summer months. So some schools do go through an extensive cleaning process. We want to make sure that the supplies that you have, whether it's tokens or smart trip cards or any other supports, whether it's clothing, hygiene products, make sure that all of that stuff is secured and stored away in an ideal place where only maybe you, and if the registrar is going to be there throughout the course of the summer, maybe would have access to. You want to make sure that, of course, any important information regarding student data is secured is secured in a location within the school that will be easy to access should any information need to be retrieved at some point during the summer. Excuse me. At the beginning, you also want to make sure that before you leave the school, whatever your last day of the school is, and you know you're not going to be returning back, that you print out your final roster of your QuickBase students and use that as a reference for the new school year of 18-19, when students return on the first day, to verify if they're still in a unsheltered situation or doubled up situation, or if a family became permanently housed at some point. You want to use that just to kind of understand the students returning and make sure that you can start building your QuickBase roster, your McKinney-Vento student roster within QuickBase for the new school year. Students may not automatically come forward and again divulge this information. So we ask that you, if you're aware of a student who is experiencing homelessness, that you do your due diligence to follow up with them, just to make sure that they are either in a permanently housed situation or what housing situation they're currently experiencing. So we just want to make sure that it's in a stored location, it's in a secured location, and possibly one or two people would have access to that information, in terms of just making sure that if it needs to be retrieved, that there is a access to retrieve that information. Graduation fees in summer school. Many of you may be involved in your promotional activities, whether it's through the pre-K, early childhood, elementary, middle school, or even the high school level. Even with the adult learning programs, you may have some type of promotional or commencement activities in support of those who are leaving your institution. So please understand that LEAs are responsible for looking at their policies and making sure there are no barriers to prevent students from participating in graduation activities. If there are any fees that are associated, it is up to the LEA to either cover those fees or to waive those fees for those participating students who are identified as experiencing homelessness. Understand that there are other funding opportunities that can support, whether it's coming from community partners, whether school staff gets together and puts money together to support a student. You can also use Title I funds, or you can use non-federal funds or any private donations in support of students who are experiencing homelessness. These are opportunities that can prevent a student from wanting to participate in graduation, even though they have earned all the accolades and done everything they can academically to achieve this moment. We want to make sure that they're able to walk across the stage or participate in activities to celebrate this milestone within their lives. For summer school, if your school is operating as a summer school site and you will not be on site serving in a capacity to assist any students experiencing homelessness, please make sure that someone is identified and trained to provide those supports. If you are not able to immediately identify that person, whoever is acting as summer school principal, you definitely want to just make sure that a conversation is had with that individual to get someone identified. Summer school support still include educational supplies. It may involve transportation if you're dealing with early childhood, in the event that it is a child who cannot travel by themselves. You also just want to make sure that they are able to participate in activities that are related to the summer school program. You also want to make sure that if your school is not a summer school site, but you are aware of your students who will be attending summer school, that they are connected with a staff person who will be providing supports for those students who are identified as McKinney-Vento students. For those who are working with the DC Public Schools, they have a list of schools who are serving as summer school sites. For the charter schools, if your LEA is hosting, or if you know of other charter schools that are registering some school students, please reach out to those schools to see who is the person identified as a McKinney-Vento homeless liaison to provide support and to make sure that those students will receive whatever supports is necessary, just as it was the regular school year. Summer program. So here's a list of different programs that will be operating during the summer. And then after this, I'm going to take a break to pause for any questions to be answered. We have a 21st Century Community Learning Center, which provides different after-school opportunities for students to participate in programs. They're usually connected either to a community resource center or to a school or LEA. Here's a link that will provide you a list of those different learning centers and which programs are available throughout the course of the school year as well as during the summer. Department of Parks and Recreation have put out a summer schedule in terms of which parents and students can register for different classes and opportunities to participate in different activities throughout the summer at different recreational sites around the city. Please also note the timeline of which which is listed in terms of program dates, times, or any other registration opportunities. You can also go to the DPR website and see for any particular activities that are near your particular school or LEA to see what camps or what programs are being offered throughout the course of the summer. Here we have a comprehensive summer program website, which is called DC Summer Camps. They provide the following programs that are listed here, and then they also have a FAQ for parents that is also listed on the website. Some of these pages can be downloaded and printed out to distribute to parents. So should they have any questions, they can do some reading and some follow-up as well. The YWCA, the National Capital Area, is offering a STEAM program for young girls ages 11 through 17. STEAM is representative of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And these programs are available throughout the course of the summer. Registration is required, and the point of contact is the Director of Youth Programs, Ms. Cheryl Johnson. Okay, before we move on, I just want to take a pause just to review any questions or any comments that is being presented.
So the first question we had was from Megan. She asked, can you confirm that OSSE is no longer requiring a paper registration form, but the LEA can use it or create one if they prefer? And so, yes, Megan is correct. OSSE is no longer requiring that the LEAs capture their homeless student data on paper and to keep that on file for auditing purposes. You are no longer required to do that. What LEAs are required to do is to capture that a student is experiencing homelessness in your student database system. And then the SIS, as Tasheen spoke to earlier, will feed that basic demographic information to the McKinney-Vento QuickBase application. All homeless liaisons are required to then manually enter into the QuickBase application the nighttime student residency status and whether or not the student is an unaccompanied homeless student and other supports and services provided to the students. So please be sure that you are going regularly, as Tasheen spoke about earlier, into the MKV QuickBase application to update that information. You are more than welcome to use the paper copy that we've always used previously to allow your staff to capture that information should you not be available to speak with the parent or student at the time that they have let someone know that they are displaced and are in transition. So you're more than welcome to use it. Just know that when the auditors come in, they are not looking for that paper copy and that OSSE is not expecting you to give us that paper copy, but you're more than welcome to either create your own form or to use one of the ones that we previously released. The next question from Rashida is, for summer school, is the attendance requirement still waived for MKV students? So for summer school, the same McKinney-Vento supports that are provided during the school year apply during summer school. So it's not that all the attendance requirements are waived. It's just that you need to still be working with those families to find out if and why their attendance issues and to see if supports are required before you then hold that student accountable for those absences. But you still should be doing some type of attendance documentation of the supports that you provided. So please be sure that there is a contact person, as Tasheen spoke to, that students can reach out to during summer school, that they can receive transportation assistance from, or other supports that they may need to be successful in summer school. The other question that Rashida had was, are they allowed extra time to make up assignments? So I think, Rashida, there sounds like there are some procedures and policies that you and I should talk about offline as far as that goes, because again, it depends on what's happening within your school. Why is the student missing the assignments? If they were not provided, let's say, transportation assistance, or they were in some extenuating circumstances. Let's say they were displaced because of crime victims, something or other, and they were placed in Virginia and they weren't able to come to school for a week or two until they got stabilized. Then those are extenuating circumstances that you should keep in mind. But if you have provided all necessary supports and a student just simply is not coming to school, then that's a different story. So let's talk offline about that further. Cindy has a question, but if the data is fed through my SIS, we only need to update our SIS, correct? Correct, Cindy. So the main thing is that if you check in the MKV QuickBase application and you see that, so the basic demographic information is fed over into the QuickBase application. Those things that are fed over, you cannot change. If you click on it, you cannot change it. There's no drop box. It's just there. If you're one of the fortunate LEAs that have set it up and you're so advanced and you have the nighttime residency status feeding over into the QuickBase application, as well as the unaccompanied homeless youth information feeding over, then yeah, there's nothing that you need to do for that mandatory information that we ask for. So when you go in and you just look at one student, if it's already populated, then it's going to be the case for all of your students. And we just ask that you provide other information as necessary. All right, I think that that's it for the questions right now. If anyone else has any other questions. Oh, Andy says he can no longer hear my mic. So can anyone else hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for confirming that you can hear me. All right, great. Okay, then go ahead, Tasheen. That's it for our questions right now.
All right. So as we move on to resources, the National Student Attendance Engagement and Success Center is located up in Baltimore, Maryland. It's connected through the Johns Hopkins University. They're our organization who is working to promote more research and technical assistance, as well as focus groups to address attendance issues and any other academically challenged situations that refer to students attending school, as well as college level students. So the website here, they're working on their own individual website, but for right now, you can use this website to access them and the different resources that are available there. The DC Alliance of Youth Advocates, otherwise known as DCAYA, they promote a lot of resources through support students, families experiencing homelessness. You can also register for one of their newsletters, which comes out on a frequent basis in terms of any updates that's going on around the city. Homeless Children's Playtime Project. Excuse me. They're also a resource that's here in DC. They also have a newsletter that you can register for and receive updates about any upcoming activities and projects. They do partner with homeless shelters in terms of providing playtime activities and creating a safe environment for children who are experiencing homelessness. The National Network for Youth is also located here in DC. As you can see, their website is available. They do send out notifications via listserv and email listings. They do host policy events, workshops, webinars as well too. The National Alliance to End Homelessness, another DC organization that's here to support homeless families that are experiencing homelessness. They do provide other research and policy supports in regards to making sure that families are supported and organizations are also supported with community partners. Do you have any resources or community partners that you would like to recommend? You can list them in the chat, and we can share them out with the rest of the liaisons here on our list, and it would just greatly help expand resources that may or may not be known, especially for those schools who are located within the same ward or same zip code. Upcoming events. So these are some of the, there's a couple of activities, a couple of events that are in support of families that are experiencing homelessness. The most recent, the most immediate event that is upcoming Wednesday, June 27th, which is hosted by the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty. They will be hosting a forum on this particular date, which will address some housing concerns that are being experienced within the district. You can go to their website and register to attend. It's a one-day conference that is taking place. NAEHCY, which is the National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth, is a national organization. They have a national conference which is held annually in the fall. This year, the conference will be held in October, and it'll be hosted out in Anaheim, California. As you can see, there's a registration link there for you. So if you're able to attend the conference, I highly recommend you do. They have different tracks and workshops that are available for all ages of children, youth, community partners that are experiencing homelessness. So now we're going to have our question and answer session. We have Nematali Aziz, who is from the Department of Mayor for Education, and I'm going to transfer the screen over to her so that she can now begin her presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tasheen. Thank you all for being a part of the conversation today about our upcoming plans for a transportation pilot to assist homeless students traveling to school. I look forward to this discussion over the next few minutes. And again, if you have any questions or comments at any time, please feel free to use the chat box. So over the next few minutes, I'll share the purpose behind today's discussion and how that fits in with the Mayor's Everyday Counts initiative. And then I have a few questions for the group that I hope most folks will have thoughts on, and then we'll close from there. As Tasheen mentioned, my name is Nematali Aziz, and I currently work in the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education as a Capital City Fellow. Most of my work focuses on student safety and transportation, which naturally also relates to attendance. And as I'm sure you all have seen this before, but the main objectives of the Office of the Deputy Mayor is to provide great schools, make sure students get to school every day, provide opportunities before, after school, and during the summer. And thank you again to the Homeless Education Program team, Nicole, Tasheen, Danielle, for all of your help so far, and for allowing us to join today's webinar. So the purpose of today's conversation is to collect feedback from you all to better inform what transportation pilot would be best suited to assist homeless students while traveling to school. We recognize that transportation can be a barrier, preventing students from being able to attend school safely. So we really want to get a grasp on what some of the problems are that students are having. And how this ties in with attendance. So Mayor Bowser's Everyday Counts initiative seeks to ensure all of our students attend school every day. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this initiative, but through investments in attendance-related programming, tools, resources, incentives to support students, families, and schools to make sure that students attend school every day. And this also includes programs like on Metro and Safe Passage to make sure that students also feel comfortable on their way to and from school. And the website is down below, attendance.dc.gov, for more information and resources. So I'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A. So I will, So the first question, and feel free to type in your response at any time. What are the top reasons that Kids Ride Free is not a good option for some homeless students? Just based on conversations in the past, is it access to Metro or bus, or does it depend on where they live, or walkability between transit and those sorts of things? So I'll go ahead and pause for a minute and see what responses come in.
One response that we received from Rashida said some live outside of the district.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. This is something that we have heard and that we're currently exploring different ways to allow those students to also access transportation.
So if you have feedback, you can type it into the questions box, and we'll address it. The next two statements that were received, one says the students lose the cards and have to complete the tap and tap process. Another one from Cindy says the toughest part of us is having to provide the parents with funds. The toughest part for us, I guess the LEAs, is having to provide the parents with funds. Cindy also says, so if a parent has to drop off and pick up, we have to provide fares for 4 ways instead of 2. Rashida says it does not cover families that want to come to the school.
Thank you. Those are really good to know. If anyone has any other thoughts regarding Kids Ride Free, the next question is a follow-up, but feel free to, if anything comes to mind throughout the Q&A, feel free to add that. So continuing along with that, is it all homeless students for whom Kids Ride Free does not work, or is it a subset of the population? And what are some of the characteristics for students whom the program is not a good option? So I guess what is it about the students who Kids Ride Free does not work for? And I believe some of you started to touch on it for, coordinating not just the transportation of the student, but also for families. And I assume that may be an issue depending on grade. But if anyone has any thoughts on that, I'll go ahead and pause for a moment.
Okay, it looks like we have feedback from Cindy. It says at DC Prep, it's just that the MKV part, having to coordinate the family's transportation as well. Then when they use the Smart Trip cards to go to work and back, makes it hard to cut the family off once they've exhausted the allowable amount. because we have to get the kids to school. So it sounds like
assuming those. Oh, go ahead, Nicole. I also see another response.
So she was saying that they spend way more than the state's allocated amount on transportation for very vulnerable families, because some families are using the funds for other things like work and housing rather than just to bring the child to and from school.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing for areas where kids ride free or smart trip cards may be a problem, or more difficult, are coordinating between families who really need the transportation, but the students who also need to get to school.
There's one more feedback from Rashida. Her LEA, they have the students reside at the school. And so she's stating that her students have to carry their luggage, bedding, and uniforms. So metro transportation is difficult because they're carrying that back and forth when they're going home on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, everyone who's responded so far. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. But again, if you have other thoughts regarding Kids Ride Free and Smart Trip that come up, feel free to add that to the chat as well. So the next question, are there any additional safe passage and safety concerns inhibiting homeless students' transportation to school? And I'll talk a little bit about safe passage. It's designed to provide safe routes for children to travel to and from school, and this can include crossing guards, being there to help students cross intersections, as well as an increased positive adult presence there to build trust and relationships and look out for any issues happening in the area. So over the past year, we had events in the beginning of the school year, our shorter term campaigns where we had volunteers in the area wearing safe passage vests, just greeting students as they are on their way to school. And we have a working group that addresses safety concerns and how to improve student safety overall. That includes coordinating calls with MPD, Metro Transit Police, District Department of Transportation, as well as school leaders in these priority areas. And we also have an interactive safe passage map that shows different routes that students can take to determine safe routes to school. So I would recommend checking that out. So in addition to the actual transportation method, I just wanted to know if there's any other safety concerns that come up.
Looks like we don't have any responses at this time. Oh, we have one. From Cindy, it says, when DC Prep has called MPD for safe passage during after school. We're told that all or most resources are at Anacostia or Ballou High School. I would like to name that we need to beef up MPD officer presence everywhere to ensure our kids are safe, not just the MKV families.
Thank you for that response. That's good to know. And something that I can share on the next coordinating call that we have with, because Anacostia Metro is one of our priority areas, as well as Congress Heights. Well, if there are any other thoughts regarding safety, feel free to add that into the discussion if anyone thinks of them as we move forward. The next question is, what are existing transportation resources that have been effective for homeless? And if none, why? So basically just wanting to know what is working and what isn't working.
Rashida has mentioned Uber and Lyft.
And is that, and Nicole, maybe you can answer that as well. How does that work? Is that a set amount that families receive to take Ubers and Lyfts, or how are they called for students?
I'm not sure. Rashida, can you give us more details? She says she manages the account, but I'm not sure of logistically how that has worked for your LEA. She says she will call the families on Sunday for pickup. Oh, I'm sorry. She calls for families on behalf of families on Sunday for pickup. And then I guess the Uber and Lyft goes to pick up. So the Uber or Lyft is picking up just the student, not the parent as well. She said yes. So they have to text the address that they need pickup and when they're ready, and then Rashida sends a car to pick the student up.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I see another.
Says from Catrice, we use Uber and Lyft often as well. We have a few delegated staff who are responsible for scheduling rides for a list of our students. We sometimes utilize it to get our students' parents in for IEP meetings and things. Rashida says that if the parent needs to come to school, they send them an Uber or Lyft as well. And I guess also, could we go back to Cindy's statement about safe passage? I'd be curious as far as DC Prep, which metro stations are near your campuses as far as safe passage? That might be helpful to know.
Yeah, thank you for following up on that, Cindy, if you're able to. Or if there are any major bus stops.
Cindy said DC Prep is Rhode Island, Anacostia, Brooklyn, and Benning Road are the metro stations. And Catrice added additional clarity. She said that The Uber and Lyft option is only available for their MKV students. DC-1 cards aren't the best option for us, as we have so many students in foster care who live outside of the jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like Ubers and Lyfts have been able to maybe get more with resources or just have more reliability and able to reach folks where they are.
Rashida said that sometimes Uber won't pick them up if they look too young. And probably for liability reasons, they will not pick up younger students. Catrice shared that the only caveat with Ubers and Lyfts are they often do not want to drive students alone. So that requires extra staff on our part, as we have to send a staff with the kids, then pay for the staff to return. Rashida said also some addresses are not posted on hotels and motels, so they have fees for cars that cancel.
And is that just the driver having difficulty locating the hotel?
I think so. If the Uber or the Lyft car goes to a location and they can't find who they're picking up, then yeah, they just leave and charge you then a fee. It looks like also Rashida said that their parents sign a form to allow the students to travel alone in the Uber or Lyft. And she said, I also share the car status, I guess, with the parents. Catrice says, same, they have an Uber and Lyft authorization form as well, which I have sometimes shown or text directly to the driver. That way the driver is aware that the parent gives consent to the student riding in the Uber.
Well, I'll go ahead and move on to my last question, but that was really helpful to know about how Uber and Lyft have been able to transport students. I've seen something recently about carpool Uber, not necessarily Uber Pool, but it's a different name, where the drivers are background checked and have to have experience working with children, at least 5 years. And it works in a similar way as Uber. I think it's called Hop, Skip, Drive or something like that. So that sounds like it's maybe worth exploring. And so my last question is, where are most of your homeless students traveling from? And if there are any major nodes that additional transportation services may be needed around certain landmarks, intersections, or bus stops. And so to the extent that you can, if you're able to provide where some of those areas are.
So several things have come up. I've asked for clarity from Rashida, but she says she's concerned. She was concerned that might be a privacy issue. Please advise. I'm not quite sure what the privacy issue is. Patrice said, "Can you repeat the name again, please?" Rashida said the privacy issue. Oh, sharing the consent form with the drivers. Yeah, because then you're giving the drivers the name of the students and the parents. So, yeah, because again, certain things are supposed to be confidential. That may be an issue. Sharing the consent form if their names are shown on the actual paper. Cindy says a suggestion I can make is that if an adult is accompanying the child on the Metro bus, the adult should be able to ride for free because they are dropping off, or could they be given a parent DC1 card that they just tap and costs us $0?
So can you read that last part again, Nicole?
Says a suggestion I can make is that if an adult is accompanying the child on the Metro bus, the adult should be able to ride for free because they are dropping off, or could they be given a parent DC1 card that they could just tap and that doesn't cost the school anything?
I see.
Cindy shared that the parent DC1 card, just a suggestion, the parent DC1 card could have time restrictions on it between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Melody wanted to know, how would the parents get the card?
I guess it could be in a similar way that, and even if WMATA is able to create a card with that function, could be assigned similarly to how a DC1 card is assigned to students by just confirming proof of identity and residency and those sorts of things.
Melody said, could the school issue them potentially? Cindy also has another suggestion. It says, through the MKV enrollment process at DC Prep, we ask what mode of transportation they will use to come to school, and families indicate that they'll be taking the Metro or the bus, then they are eligible for transportation funds, and it could be linked to that.
I think those are all really great suggestions, and definitely things to consider and how to be able to transport students and families. With the last few minutes that we have, I'll turn it over to my last question just to see if anyone had any thoughts on where most homeless students are traveling from within the district.
And we would love to hear from some of the other attendees as well. We appreciate the feedback from the 4 or 5 people that have been giving us excellent feedback and asking quality questions. And there are about 33 more people on the call that we haven't heard from. So any other thoughts on where your students are coming from? Are they coming from different areas of the district? If so, what wards of the district are you aware of that you're seeing them coming from? And if they're coming from outside of the district, where else are they coming from as far as other jurisdictions? Melody said that at the Children's Guild, their students are coming from all over the district. The majority of Nakias are coming from Ward 5. Andrea says that most of hers are coming from the hotels on New York Avenue and from various shelters. Oh, the answers are pouring in. You guys are doing great. Liz says that most of her kids live in Boundary. A small percentage are coming from Ward 7 and 8. Vanessa says hers, most of them are coming from Prince George's County, Maryland, and Wards 5, 7, and 8. Tiffany says during hypothermia season, they experience an increase in students coming from the hotels and shelters on New York Avenue. Laura says most of her families are doubled up. Is there any particular area, Laura, that your families are doubled up, that you're finding them? She also said most of the MKV students at the Southeast campus that she works with are coming from Southeast, but the MKV students at the Northeast campus are coming from all over DC. Patrice says our students board, so our transportation issues aren't daily, but on Sunday evenings or Monday morning when they come into board, we have a group coming from DC General, a group from New York Avenue. Those are the hotels on New York Avenue. But then we have a group of 5 students all residing in PG County in Suitland, Temple Hills area. Laura says hers are doubled up in Southeast, Ward 7 and 8. And Tiffany says during the past 2 years, we also experienced an increase in students traveling from Maryland. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for all those responses. That's really helpful to know. Well, if anyone has any other thoughts on the transportation pilot or any of the questions that I asked from the remaining last few minutes of the webinar, feel free to send those along. Tasheen is going to send out a follow-up survey. Well, you'll have another opportunity to submit responses related to transportation. I plan on submitting or presenting this general feedback that I received from all of you at the next Everyday Counts Task Force meeting next month. And if you have any additional questions for me or want to talk further, my information is there below, nimotoi.aziz@dc.gov, and my number there as well. And with that, I'll go ahead and thank you all for your time. Thank you for sharing your responses, and really an important discussion to have So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tasheen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for providing your feedback, for participating. It was great. We will still take any other comments and feedback that you have. As we get ready to conclude this webinar session, please check the poll session. There are a few questions we would definitely like to get your feedback on. And then at the conclusion of the webinar, there's going to be a short survey that's going to be sent out to you. So if you can provide any other content or feedback for us, that would be great. And we'll make sure to record that, and then also send out any other information to share with you guys as well, based on your feedback. So again, any final questions? We definitely want to make sure that we address before the conclusion of this. We want to make sure that you complete the poll questions that are attached to this webinar. So if you look on the bar, you'll see there's a couple of questions. There should be about 6 of them. Real short, easy to respond to. If you can complete that, and like I said, we'll have a survey that'll be sent to you after the webinar. For those of you who will not be around during the summer, we do wish you a safe and enjoyous vacation. For those of you who will be working throughout the summer, I look forward to staying in touch with you. Please make sure that your students who are attending summer school are connected to someone, if it's at your school or a different school, who could provide McKinney-Vento supports. And then also we'll be following up with you in regards to making sure that your student data information is completed. The columns that we mentioned, specifically the nighttime residency, date identified as homeless, and if they are an unaccompanied youth. So before I go, I do want to just check and see any final questions that are being asked that we can respond to.
So yes, there are a couple of last minute questions and comments. Several people thanked us. Vanessa, thank you for thanking us for the presentation. Rashida wanted to know when you'll receive the deck, as well as Liz. So that will be going out to you all later today, no later than tomorrow morning, but most likely later today, because we want to capture all of the information that you all provided us as far as resources and provide that as well to you all. Also, as a reminder, as far as the poll, if you please be sure to take the poll. If you click on the poll button, then it will give you another drop-down box. If you click on that drop-down box, then there are different questions there. So you have to actually click on each of them, and then there are buttons that you can answer those questions. So each of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, they each have a drop-down box. So you have to click on that and click launch in order to answer the poll questions. So again, as we work to be sure that we're providing quality presentations to you and also know what's happening with your schools and things that we need to know, we ask that you complete this poll before you exit the webinar. So thank you so much. If you have any follow-up questions after the presentation, please be sure to email Tasheen or I, and we'll be glad to answer that for you if it didn't get answered today. Rashida, the poll box is on your right, I guess, wherever your panel is, it shows the presentation. And that's where you've been typing in the chat box. The polls are part of the menus on that. Do you see it yet? I don't have a response yet.
Also, I just want to remind you, for those who may have gotten on later, if you can identify what school you're representing, just our way of taking attendance of who all is here participating on the webinar. Just make sure that you identify what school you're representing. If you're at an LEA with multiple campuses, please make sure you represent the campus that you're from. Nicole, are there any other additional questions?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay. Well, as always, our contact information is here for you. Just in case for some reason you just don't have it. If you've just been ignoring our emails, or if for some reason our phone number has just disappeared from your contact list. So we just want to make sure that you have it. We're available throughout the week. We're here through the summer, and we'll be excited for the new school year to return. At the same time, again, for those of you who will be here throughout the course of the summer, we will check in with you to make sure that any concerns or supports as needed can be addressed. Again, those of you who are taking vacation, we definitely want to make sure that you have a safe one, and we look forward to you returning in the school year. And like I said, you have until Sunday, July 8th, to get all information completed, as we will be following up with you just to ensure that that task has been completed. Again, I would like to thank Nicole for joining us and handling the question and answers responses from the liaisons. I would like to thank Natalia Aziz for representing the Deputy Mayor for Education's office. Excuse me, the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education, with her question and answer session. And again, I'd like to thank you all for your continuous work and dedication to the students within your school, not just with the MKV students, but for all students that are attending your respective institution. So thank you again for participating, and please look for the decks to be provided to you later this afternoon.
So we'll also leave the webinar open for a few more minutes in order for you to finish answering the poll questions. And if you have any additional resources you wanted to recommend, because someone made a wonderful recommendation earlier about the Went Center and how they have a summer program for children. So I'll be sure that we include that in the resource information. So if you have any other resource information you wanted to share, then we will add that to the information we send out to everyone. So thank you again, and have a wonderful summer if you take a break. If not, we wish you all the best and look forward to working with you all again during the late summer, beginning of the fall. Someone asked me to also clarify about the poll location and how you can get to it. So when you log in, there should have been a little pop-up screen that shows in the corner, and that's what you're using to type in your questions and your chats that you've been doing. One of the gray bars says polls 0/6. And so those are the questions that you're answering. If you click the little arrow, then it will give you a drop down. The little arrow is to the left of the word polls. If you click on that, then it opens up a drop box below that has a down arrow. And then if you click on the down arrow, then it will give you 6 questions and statements. And you have to click on one, then hit launch, and then a little box appears that says you agree or disagree. And then when you finish with that, you close it, and then you go back to the other question. And then you go and you answer those other questions. But you have to do them one by one. And then once you finish, close it, and then that gives us your fabulous feedback. So if you still need some more guidance, just email me and I'll call you. Okay? Or you can call me at 202-654-6123, and I'll walk you through it. Thank you. I'm glad you got it, Liz. Andrea, can you call me and I'll walk you through the poll? Can you all let me know if you're not seeing the poll option on your screen?
It looks like it's saying it's closed. So I'm trying to see. Um, yeah, it looks like it's closed out, and maybe due to the timing of the webinar. So we may have to just send those questions out when we send out the information for you guys as well.
Yeah, so we'll probably have to just do it via SurveyMonkey because it looks like it's not working properly. What I'm doing now is if you try to answer it, are you able to see anything right now? Because I just launched one of them.
Okay, send the questions better because that's going to pop up. Okay, somebody can see it.
Okay, so I see what's happening. So we have to launch, that's what's happening, Tashin. We have to launch each poll. It's not, we can see all the questions, but you all can't. So because I just launched it, that's why you were able to see it. So you have to answer them as I launch them. So just in the interest of time, we'll do a SurveyMonkey and send these out to you all if you promise to then answer the SurveyMonkey. Because I know you close it and then you hit the ground running for lunch duty and everything else. But that's what's happening. I have to wait and open each one and close it once you've answered it. So I've opened now the third question, and now you all can answer the third one. So yeah, just in the interest of time, I don't want you all to keep holding on to have to answer each question. So Tashin will do a SurveyMonkey and send it out as part, the link to that as part of the deck. So that way you all can go ahead and get to your many other plethora of duties that you're responsible for. So thank you so much. We appreciate you all, and have a great afternoon.